I'm a chameleon, yeah.
I have half the brain that you do.
I did it for The Rock.
Oh my God!
The Most Crucial Podcast presents Crucial Squared Circle, the most crucial wrestling podcast with Mark Franchise and Davison Sarai.
A little bit of the bubbly.
And that's the bottom line. The Stone Cold said so.
All right, welcome back to the Crucial Squared Circle. Once again, your host in the building, Mark Franchise from 104.9 The Edge, joined, as always, by the ever-lovely Davison Sarai.
Happy Wrestling Night, Franchise.
Happy Wrestling Night. And T, of course.
Hey there, hi there, ho there.
And super crucial guest tonight, the IPW owner, Josh Raymond.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude. Thanks for coming in. This is going to be freaking sweet. And we're glad that you could hang out with us throughout the entire episode as well. Much love to all of you who have subscribed to 104.9 The Edge's YouTube. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Crucial Podcasts YouTube page as well. We just put it up there. We're going to have a lot more content that's going to be coming up there as well. And make sure you follow us as well on Facebook.com/Crucial Podcasts. Always got a bunch of sweet interviews, and we do this wrestling show weekly as well, so we're staying up to date with everything. This is actually going to be our last podcast for a couple of weeks. We're taking 2 weeks off. I don't know if you guys know I'm leaving next Friday.
I didn't know that. I wish you would have given me some notice. My holiday is ruined.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, lame. Thought that was fun.
Yes.
We were going to talk again next week.
My bad.
And since we're sharing future announcements, I might as well just go ahead and tell you, this may be my last podcast anyway.
Wow.
I'm running off with Bobby Lashley.
Oh, okay. My God.
Yeah.
This sounds really interesting.
Don't tell anybody. I don't need the feds hanging out at my house. Is that a true story? Is the FBI honestly investigating this Lana angle? Is that a real thing?
This is what I've been hearing. That the FBI apparently is looking into death threats that Lana has received over a cuck angle.
Is it the fact that she's in a relationship with him? Is it the adultery that's pissing people off? Or is it the bad writing that's causing all this?
She ruined Rusev Day, man. Like, she needs death threats over ruining Rusev Day. What can I tell you?
Hey, man, all's fair in chokeholds and cuckolds.
I'm just saying. I don't know how much she had to do with that. I'm just spinning baseless conspiracy theories over here. I'm still real salty about how things got sidetracked for Rusev and Aiden English way back when they were killing it. I haven't recovered. So the fact that we're now dealing with Bobby Lashley banging Rusev's wife is just... It's very 2019. It makes perfect sense.
Well, and we talked a little bit about this last week, is like at that SummerSlam where Test is fighting Shane McMahon, and you would think it was for the world title. The way the crowd reacted to that, I mean, they really wanted to see Test give pipe to Stephanie McMahon. They were sold on that idea.
Was that part of the arrangement? Did the crowd get to watch if he won?
That's VIP.
I mean,
you didn't pay the VIP price. You can't watch.
Yeah, the words very impotent prick came to mind immediately when you said that. I wasn't a big fan of those two personally. No, we've talked about that before, though. It seemed like, all the way back to WrestleMania 3, I'm still thinking about Matilda and how much the crowd was just bloodthirsty because Matilda had been kidnapped.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And now here we
bulldog.
are. Now here we are,
yes,
people laying the pipe and stealing people's wives, and nobody gives half a shit. So, yeah, I don't know.
I just don't think. You just can't. I think it's just it's a way. It's because of society. It's the way things are now, and it's also the other responsibility falls on creative to be creative at the end of the day.
That's weird.
And, people know it's a work now, too. If it was real, maybe it'd be a little different. But I think people realizing that, it's a work, they can definitely get against the idea of, this terrible writing.
But that's the thing, too. If you're good at entertaining, you forget that work is there. You forget it because you're watching you're being entertained. And that's something that we've found in AEW. And I think that's, going back to the FBI looking into death threats that Lana has received, I think the internet has given birth to a world of people who just live in cynicism, where nothing is good enough for them. And it was almost as soon as AEW showed up on TV, critics were just waiting they were waiting like Black Friday. They were waiting outside those doors to bust in and tear down everything that they were doing. And to me, I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, it's a fresh product. They're still getting to know who they are as a product. They're still trying to figure out. I mean, it's basically a brand new company. And all these products that had come out in the 90s, like when Nitro went, they went worldwide, NWA, WCW, they'd been around for years and years. So it was just a new TV show. It wasn't a new company.
Right.
This is brand new. And people don't know how to just take a step back, take a deep breath, and just enjoy and watch. Criticism isn't bad. I'm able to criticize, but you have to be logical about it.
I've been thinking, we talk about this every week. And I've told you I was a big fan of the old school NWA, pre-WCW. And when we talk about Cornette and the people who are still supporting Cornette through all of his shenanigans, it makes me think of people who are deeply rooted in that classic, Southern kind of Smoky Mountain mentality of what wrestling was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And, for the most part, a lot of pro wrestling, even up in the North, is still very deeply rooted in kind of that late 80s, early 90s lore. And it seems like since Vince got his stranglehold on things, which we focused on right around 2000, there hasn't been a lot of big, mainstream advancement. Things did kind of get stuck in ember. And that's why it's been so cool to then step out of that and focus on the independent wrestling that's been popping up all over the planet in the last 20 years. It had been there, but it's thrived because, the mainstream just got so stagnant. But so I keep kind of joking with my friends about, creepy Uncle Larry, who might be in his 50s and he still insists that all music sucks except for his favorite, which of course was Lynyrd Skynyrd at his high school dance or whatever fucking thing. Like, human psychology dictates that at some point you lock your favorite stuff in the memory banks, and then you hit another age and everything sucks. My old stuff is where it's at. And it just seems like that's where the majority of mainstream wrestling media had their heads.
Yeah.
This is not what it was, therefore we're going to try to almost root for its failure, is what it felt like.
Yeah, a lot of people, there's a lot of cynicism there. And again, people really try, they go back, oh man, if they just do Attitude Era stuff. And I'm like, no, that won't work now. You can't just do a PG-13 product and it's going to be successful. It's just not like that anymore. The entire reason the Attitude Era worked is because literally WCW forced professional wrestling to go another direction. That's still why I still think the NWO turn is probably the biggest turn in wrestling history, because it literally changed everything.
Well, let me ask. I know, yes, Bischoff's the one who made the decisions for WCW, but every one of the changes he attempted to implement came from either ECW or Japan.
Yes,
So
no doubt. Well,
was it-
NWO was a direct ripoff of the New Japan Pro Wrestling faction that they had over there.
Yeah,
where all
totally.
the top guys were a part of the elite faction,
Right.
and they were trying to take it. Was but he used Hulk Hogan to do that, because Hulk Hogan was the biggest name in wrestling up until that point.
Right.
And using him to do that shifted the entire eye of wrestling. They started doing different things, and that forced McMahon to take a completely different route with his creative as well. And in turn, he was forced to come up with genius plans every single week. He had to come up with genius storylines in order to save his company. And every week you were getting something edgy, you were getting something new, and they were literally scrapping to survive.
Well, thank God he had Vince Russo.
Stop it.
Bro.
Stop bringing up Vince Russo.
Yo, he single-handedly saved wrestling. It's
Single-handedly. He did it alone.
He said it a bunch of times. It must be true.
But at the same time, though, it says a lot that, people now they go back to that where they just want to see Attitude Era stuff. I'm like, no, I don't want to see Attitude Era stuff.
No.
I just want to see people going out there and having fun. That's what I want to see. I want to be entertained. I want to see people express themselves.
The Attitude Era was at a certain time in society too, where we had, South Park, Tom Green, Jackass, all those things at that, pivotal point in society where things changed for that, that 13 to 35 demographic.
Yeah.
Like they wanted something more instead of that stagnant thing that they've seen for 15 years.
Absolutely, and that hit again. It was the time frame. It was the era that we were living in that dictated a lot of that change as well. The world was changing around us. Wrestling had to do it eventually, and that's exactly what happened. You can't replicate that. You can't, just throw in some PG-13 content and be like, it's going to be like the good old days. It's like it doesn't have to be like the good old days. You can take it in a new direction. You can make it personal again, and you just have to entertain. You just have to find the right people, and you have to allow them. You have to find the right people, and you also have to allow them to be themselves and work things out for themselves instead of having dozens and dozens of writers depending on you to be a performer and not just a wrestler.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how I feel about that.
I want to offer Josh a kudos for dropping Tom Green in your 1990s references. Yeah. No, thank you. I'm a big fan of Freddy Got Fingered. It's one of my favorite movies from the time.
Love Tom Green still. Legit.
So good. Now, why do we have to deal with David Arquette? I would have taken a Tom Green wrestling cameo
Yeah.
for at least twice the length. It would have still been shit, but I would have been all about it for a while. So what have you all heard about AEW's Revolution pay-per-view that they've announced for February over in Chicago?
Yeah, I heard that's in Chicago. It's not going to be at the same Sears Center that they had the last couple of things at. This one's going to be over at the Wintrust Arena.
Oh, I didn't know they were moving.
Yeah, they were moving down the road a little bit. I looked up tickets, or not tickets, rather. I looked up hotels in the area. They are stupid expensive, but they are going for $450 a night at the local Marriott. You can walk across in the pedestrian walkway, or you can go a couple more blocks north at, the Radisson, I think.
Yeah.
Shit beds, by the way, for $150 a night.
Hey, you
Shit
know what?
Beds.
You bring a couple of cots and you have 4 people to throw down. You're gonna get cozy, but you know what? It's not gonna be that expensive. I'm interested because there was news recently that they had branded, that they had copywritten the name for that event. So there was speculation that it was going to be a pay-per-view, and a pay-per-view event in which that's ends up being the case. I would like to see. I'm really interested to see when Kalamazoo is going to be all elite.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see when that would happen as well. They did sign a contract recently with a company that they were going along the lines of doing quarterly pay-per-views.
Yeah.
I can't remember, through 2021, I believe that was the case. So that whole adventure is going to be very positive for them. And I'd be interested to see also when they smack up GR.
Yeah,
Grand
for
Rapids
sure.
is a wonderful venue as well. They've got Van Andel, which I'm sure they could sell out within no time or no issue. I'll buy 2 tickets just in case.
Well,
but the fact of the matter
that.
is that they will fill that house without hesitation.
And I think, again, the more time that they have to build off of Dynamite on Wednesdays, the bigger their shows are going to be. There's a lot of people that were posting pictures of this week's show showing a huge empty section. They're like, oh my God, it was empty. And Cody Rhodes came out and said, we sold 4,800 tickets. That was 80% of capacity. We're doing fine. We're going to be back. And
You know what that reminds me of?
what's that?
When they were making their announcements, and they sold out that very first show. Was it in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm trying to. It was super, super fast, right?
4 minutes.
4 minutes. there you go.
Jeez.
And then I remember, I think it was Meltzer who had essentially challenged, Cody Fett challenged personally by Meltzer on that, you'd never be able to do
yeah.
it. So he sold all these tickets. Then everybody, I'm thinking of Conan and Disco on their podcast. I know there were a handful of people just being salty, but they're like, okay, well, they sold that one out, but what about blank? And then they do the next one. They sold them out even faster. And it's like, oh, well, I guess maybe what about the next thing and the next thing? And they've just been smashing it.
Yeah,
But
you
people have
can't
just
measure
been-
me if you keep measuring or raising the height of the bar.
Yeah, you gotta
There's
stop
no way
moving.
to do that.
Right. They're scoring touchdown after touchdown. People just keep moving the goalpost on what their success is supposed to be.
And again, it goes back to the cynicism of it all. Nobody wants to be happy. Nobody can just enjoy it. And all the complaining that they do, it's stemmed out of hatred. I've never seen so many people who want brands to... Just the comments that people make on some of these posts are so idiotic and juvenile.
Well, the one thing that I'm wondering about that then is, are these folks then fully devoted to WWE so that they've now come... I guess the question that I have then, tied to that, is that if they're committed to WWE and they have the mindset of, or the perspective of this archaic, old school, like we wish it was the way it was,
Yeah.
why are they mad with AEW? I don't.
I think mostly what it is, and I'm referring to the good people on the wrestling fans page.
Yes, we'll
on
leave
Facebook.
them enigmatic faces, but yes, we know who they are.
I think what it is are people who are very, very high on NXT, which it's hard not to be high on
Solid
NXT.
product.
It's
It's
a
a solid
completely
product.
different product
Yeah, it's amazing.
than Raw or SmackDown, and they're getting back to the smaller venues, the real wrestling, the storylines, and they know how to make you a part of the storyline. It takes you kind of back to that old mentality of feeling a part of everything, which makes wrestling fun. When you feel involved personally in it, that's when you've got a winning product. And I think it's people who admire that and they recognize that, but they still hold allegiance to WWE. And here comes this new product, which is easily number 2 right now. If you were talking about it's in terms of what the finances that they have to back it up. But again, it's a new company. They're trying their own thing. They're still figuring things out. But they'll sit there and they'll just pick every little thing apart.
Oh,
and I'm
course.
like, you can't just let these guys go out there and wing it. You have to criticize every little thing.
I mean, that's been the history for a while, but I'm curious, and I told you how it's been a little bit of a bummer for me because I've been such a huge NXT fan and supporting it ever since it switched over from FCW way back. This grudge I have against Vince and how crappily he's been treating all of us for such a long time.
Yeah.
I told you the other week, like NXT, in my opinion, is right at the cusp of doing some of its greatest business. And it's interesting because if you look at who's blowing up on their roster, and again, just run down some of my favorites, Keith Lee is right in the top. You got everybody in the Undisputed Era, you got Riddle, etc. Those are all the same people that were wrestling every single night in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, in spots over in Japan and spots all over the UK with the exact same people in AEW. And that's why it's interesting to me. Josh, I'm sure you've shared the ring with the majority of some of these people that we're finally starting to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's been for a long time. It's been the guys who love wrestling, who've dedicated their life to it, and that's kind of what NXT and AEW is now. It's the guys who've really spent their entire adult life pursuing their dream, instead of just guys who played football and might want to be pro wrestlers.
Right.
So that's kind of the difference between those rosters right now. And a lot of those guys, they worked for Ring of Honor, they worked for PWG, as you mentioned, CZW, and a number of other larger independent promotions. And I'm happy to see all those guys where they're at. I hope everybody makes a lot of money and continues to be successful.
Right. It's not an easy life to live. And that's the entire point at the end of the day. If you're going to be a wrestler, you just want to make a good living. You want to be successful at what you do. And I think that's the issue that we've seen with WWE. That's why I said a couple of weeks ago, I would much rather just see NXT be their own brand and stop crossing over. It's a joke. It's not even close when it comes to what product entertains me when you're talking about NXT and WWE main roster.
It's light years apart.
I just wish they would just stay their own entity, and instead of it being a farm system, because like we said, when you talk about people like Asuka and Shinsuke Nakamura, who they come right in and they are as hot as can be. So what do? Do you give them the title right off the bat because they're super hot, and then they lose the title, and then they don't know what to do with them, and so that it takes them a couple of months to figure it out, okay, boom, now you're doing this? Or do you get Aleister Blacked?
Well, that's the thing, though, that's why we've taken our eye away from the fact that it's still the farm league. Like, it's on TV, and it happens to be our favorite TV product now, and it's amazing, but it is still the representation of their farm league.
Right.
Which I love. Like, I like watching people go from, it's their first time in the ring, to a year later, to a couple years later, they show up on the main show.
Yeah.
But like we said before, what they're doing, or what they have been doing with very little spotlight, is allowing people to just flourish and develop their own skills and their own character. And just like everything else, the second you introduce more money, meaning corporate sponsorships, now all of a sudden you have to appeal more to the masses. And the masses have never been the taste setters for wrestling fans, or music or any other form of art, really. The mass is where you sell and you make money from usually watered down products. And hello, that's why WWE continues to flourish. But so, I don't know, it freaked me out when NXT went to USA, because now there's the spotlight. And then here come the ratings. And oops, the ratings aren't good enough. And very first thing was, here come the WWE main roster wrestlers.
Right.
The second you take something out of the basement, whether it's punk rock, whether it's wrestling, whatever the fuck, you expose it to the light of day and you put money on it, and all of a sudden you're a slave to some masters you do not want to be a slave to. And we talked about them moving the show to Sunday.
Yeah.
And how Sunday's historically been such a crap show for wrestling.
Yeah.
In some ways, that might make me happier because it's almost like how 205 Live wasn't getting any attention.
Where's 205 Live?
Honestly, it's just on the network. Like you
they don't
have
even.
to, yeah, you have to want to find it to find it.
Is it still running even? Is it like...
I thought they closed. I thought they shut it down.
There's a plan to, but as far as I know, they're still airing them. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, but the point is like the smaller it is, the more they can continue to get away with just doing the work. Like, did you say you wrestled for PWG before, Josh? Holy
Yeah,
shit!
I wrestled for PWG. I did their tag tournament.
Did you?
Yeah, and I worked for a ton of places. Like, look at my Wikipedia. Come on.
I'm sorry. was that one of your favorite places to wrestle?
I really enjoyed it. I really did. They have like 5 owners to their company. A lot of them being wrestlers. All of them being wrestlers. So it's hard to really know who to listen to because you have Danny saying one thing and Joey saying one thing. And that was the only issue with that. But it was fun. All my friends there. It's really relaxed, laid back.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's just, for me, like, I loved the old ECW because it had that party atmosphere. And then any video I've ever seen of PWG, especially at the old building, was just like a nut house. It looked so fun.
The Reseda building, or?
Yeah, well, the one it looked like there was like the wood ceiling or something
With the
falling
fans.
with the beams.
Yeah.
Have you all looked into PWG stuff yet? I keep crowing about it. I don't know if you've taken the time.
Not personally.
No, I've been digging deeper into New Japan and Japan related.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've given me assignments.
Do yourself a favor, and if there's anybody you like on the roster right now, whether it's AEW or NXT,
Yeah.
chances are they started, or at least not necessarily started there, but started making a name for themselves there. So yeah, do yourself a favor, check it out.
Awesome.
Yeah, everybody I love right now came through there. And I don't know if we were going to get to it in another episode, but we had talked about possibly covering some of our favorite matches today. And one of mine is a PWG match. I'm sure you've seen it. It was between the Bucks and the world's cutest tag team. And it was the match where Candice got super kicked with the golf shoe. And they went to dump out thumbtacks in the ring at one point. It was gummy bears.
Yeah.
Like, they did a super Meltzer destroyer from the top rope to the concrete floor on Candice. Like, yeah, that to me is like the epitome of PWG wrestling, at least the way I enjoyed it. So yeah, just super, super fun. And speaking of that, I don't know if either of these guys wrestled out there. Somebody debuted on AEW this week who I was especially excited about because of my love for a band.
Oh, yeah.
Called Every Time I Die. Jesus, Mark, you blew my friggin' mind.
Are you talking about Big Swole?
No, Big Swole is the future.
The Blade, the Butcher, the Blade, and then the Bunny.
Yeah.
The guitarist for Every Time I Die. As soon as he popped through the ring, there was an article on Facebook that says Every Time I Die guitarist appears on wrestling show, and I was like,
I can't fucking believe that's happening. It's to this moment. Just because I love that band so much and I love wrestling so much, it's just like, how is this even possible?
Yeah, is it the middle-aged dad with tattoos looks like a biker, or the other?
yes.
Yeah.
And our buddy Jake Simmons, he said something while we were watching, and he's like, you know what? He's like, I like him already. He's like, back in the day, you used to have a bunch of wrestlers that looked like your big scary uncle, and now, everyone's cut up, everyone's chiseled, and he's like, this guy looks like a big scary uncle. He's like, and I like that.
Yeah, like there used to be ass kickers, and now there's just athletes.
Right.
There's not enough ass kickers.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
He looks like a bartender from Deadwood.
Yeah, and I was, for what it was, I thought he did a pretty good job. I thought the tag team had pretty good chemistry. It was their first match, so you have to base it very loosely. You haven't even began to see what's in their repertoire.
Interestingly enough, I dig them the way that they've come across more than I liked the creepy beavers or the spooky perverts. I love the spooky perverts and all, and I like their commercials.
I think he's talking about the Dark Order.
Dark Order.
I am talking about the Dark Order. Sorry,
Yes.
The spooky perverts, Dark Order. I find their commercials great. I dig it. I like being immersed in that way. They could have gotten over better. I think that they could have gotten over better with things, but that's
You
not,
are risking your life and by proxy my ass in this office by talking about evil Uno like that. I want you to stop immediately.
So who did the Butcher and Blade make their debut against? Did they just do a run-in, or what did they do?
No, it was a big one. It was against was it against Omega and the Hangman? Or was that a different match?
That was no, it was against Cody Rhodes.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it was Cody
Yeah.
Rhodes and his hand-picked partner, who was like the greenest guy on the roster.
Yeah,
'cause
MJF picked
his
it.
partner. It was against Cody Rhodes.
But yeah, Cody did the job, and he, they I think they introduced their finisher, which was a suplex.
Oh, it was
Butcher did the
basically
suplex,
It was
and
one of
then-
Roderick Strong's finishing moves done by two guys, where Roderick would like suplex him up, throw him, and then drop onto his back and stick his knees up.
Yeah.
That's their finish, except two guys do it.
So yeah, and they got the win. But like I said, it was their first match, and I thought I just think that's again pretty smart on their part to be like, hey, we're about to capture the heavy metal audience, because I'm a part of a group for the. It's a group of people who missed the Dillinger escape plan called the Dillinger Compound, and I've seen multiple posts be like, oh yeah, he's like, it's for all the freaking Dillinger fans who love Every Time I Die, and a whole bunch of people start commenting AEW, and I'm like, shit, that's freaking genius, man. Now you're touching into a new audience.
Yeah, it is.
And that's kind of like what we're doing here on 104.9 The Edge, as well as just tapping into multiple avenues. And it's not because we want to win people over. It's because this is who we are. We love a lot of different things. It's not just a basic, we're not trying to be basic over here. We're trying to literally express ourselves, talk about all the different things we love, and make that connection with people. And that's exactly what they're doing, and I think it's pretty brilliant. It brings people together.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, you keep talking about what's a representative of current culture and what's not. Do you remember maybe last month, AEW had all of those masks for Rick and Morty in the crowd? They'd worked out some kind of a deal.
Yeah.
If that's not that's probably the coolest fingerprint from mainstream culture on wrestling that I've seen in a very long time, and way cooler than anything Vince has been able to pull off.
I didn't see that, but that sounds awesome.
Yeah, isn't that just the perfect representation? And then I was thinking too, the Every Time I Die thing.
Yeah.
They had Joey Ryan with his army of penises who came out at the first pay-per-view. They're doing it exactly right.
I mean, I would also add on the Cracker Barrel match, but
Yeah.
Josh, you had said a little bit ago, the idea of tapping into what's going on, tying it in with what they were doing with the Attitude Era, Tom Green, South Park, and there was one more that you had mentioned along those lines. But
Jackass.
Jackass, yes, the guy Steve-O, or also known as the Spanish God. Yeah, it's
Otherwise known as
tapping into
brain
what's
damage.
going on. You're paying attention to what's happening. You're listening to who's out there, and you're making sure whatever you make is tailor-made for those that are going to be wearing it, and that's very important. You don't just make a one-size-fits-all and hope that it fits. Thank you, WWE.
Yeah, I mean, that was the shock culture kind of thing at the Jerry Springer show and stuff. But now, people are more complicated, especially nowadays when you have all these avenues of entertainment that you can explore. So, you may like anime, and you may like, punk rock, and you may like, countless other things. So, open up those boundaries and let people explore those and see what they like and try to find people and their interests.
That's what's exciting about it too, is when you have somebody, especially on TV or in wrestling, and then they make a shout out, or they say something that alludes to that they're a fan of something else, and you make that connection. You're like, oh, that's freaking sweet. I dig that too.
Yeah, I would say that Apollo
Crews?
Name? No, not Apollo Crews. Goodness gracious.
Creed?
Slip
He
and
used
slide?
to go by Apollo Creed. Yeah, Xavier Woods.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Cool Cat Daddy in the Breeze. I've met him. He's nice. He's wonderful. I just got to say, I appreciate the up, down, down. And it's unfortunate
I
that
love
he's
that.
out for the next little bit. But the fact of the matter is that gives him a little bit of time to enjoy what he's got and do himself some fun. And the up, down, down is something that I wish in some ways that WWE would tap more into, because again, that's something that is of interest and that would garner more fans. Similar to what Kenny Omega was doing when it came down to his intro when he was at New Japan Pro Wrestling, having the vibe of Final Fantasy and a variety of different other anime-related or video game-related things. You're tapping into those who know and want something else that's also interesting. I want Muppets. I want Muppets, puppets, and variations of sorts. I want that to be in wrestling. I
It
would
is.
love if
Go to
Kermit-
the fun house.
Yes, I will say, fair
Right?
point. Fair point.
Thank you.
Duly noted.
Okay. Yes. And I.
CrossFit Jesus may burn it down while you're there, so be careful. Take some salve.
Yeah, you got me on that one. Muppets.
Hey.
There.
I don't know that I share your enthusiasm for Muppets, but
Drawstrings. Come on, they're great.
hey. You know, I keep thinking about AEW. I keep thinking about the punk rock aspect that I like in wrestling, especially indie wrestling. That always brings me back to thinking about ECW. Mark, you mentioned earlier there'd been a recent match between Rhino and RVD.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten a chance to see it yet. How was it?
It was good. You know, a lot of people, and again, we're talking about people who have nothing to do with their time but complain. I watched the match, and it had a very 80s style pace to it. Back in the 80s, I felt, not even the 80s, but even into the Attitude Era, there was a very good pace that wrestlers, I felt knew how. And again, I'm only saying this on the level of what WWE has offered over the years.
You're talking about rest holds, correct?
It's just having flow to a match. I think there's an art form to wrestling, and at some point, WWE decided the performance was way more important than the wrestling. So the wrestling got way less interesting, way less creative, and in turn, almost became second banana to the acting, and the.
Yeah, it's very formulaic, is what you're saying.
Right, exactly. You have to go into a match, and you think of guys like Macho Man Randy Savage, who would list moves number 1 all the way down to the very end.
Yeah, I heard about that when he came down speaking with Jake the Snake Roberts. He was going through list by list, item by item as to how that match would play out, and he said, this is what's going to happen, this is what's next going to happen, then I'm going to do this, because it was a choreographed adventure when it came down to what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But also in the end he knew what he wanted to do as a means of getting people over and getting the attention of the audience and getting that build up so that you actually had something and a payoff at the end.
And it showed that the number 1 thing on his mind was the wrestling.
The wrestling and the audience.
When I found out his match with Steamboat at WrestleMania 3 was planned out move for move, it kind of blew my mind because it didn't look at all mechanical. You know, that didn't look programmed to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a term that we use of, like, workers, someone who can go out there and work and kind of improv, and then there's guys who are just, like, performers. And it surprised me, too, that, like, Macho Man wasn't just a worker who kind of feel the crowd out and do things. So the fact that, like, he had all this stuff choreographed, he kind of already knew what they wanted before they wanted it, which is mind-blowing to me. Like, not many people have that. Like, Jake Roberts is one of those guys who's a worker. We'll fill him out and tell him what they want. But Macho Man, like, he already knew what they wanted. And I think Kevin Steen's one of those guys that's like that, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, going back to the Rhino and RVD match with Tommy Dreamer as the ref, it kind of had that feel to it where they went in, and these are guys that have been working together for freaking years. They know each other so well. And they put on a classic ECW type match, but it had a different feel to it. It didn't seem as chaotic, and it felt more like that classic wrestling vibe where they really put a lot of thought into their match. And it was also very funny too at the same time as a wrestling fan, because every time I just remember at one point Rhino gets destroyed in the groin with a steel chair, and Tommy Dreamer just kind of cringes. And I guess it's just kind of funny because Tommy Dreamer, after having his blood drained out of his testicle
poor
sac,
bastard.
you kind of you see the reality in his face where he knows that sucks.
Is that from Lawler? Didn't Lawler hit him in the nuts with a kendo stick?
With a kendo stick. He just came down with the cram.
What?
Yeah. When they did the crossover, Lawler came down with the kendo stick and gave him the business.
Yeah, kendo sticks are bamboo, and when they swing them, they bend, and they end up pinching your back if you get hit in the back. So rather than pinching his back, it pinched his scrotum, and yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, they had to drain I don't know how big a CC is, but there were a lot of CCs of blood taken out of his you-know-what.
Holy cow, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And I'll tell you what, I really like it when I can forget that it's all an act in front of me and it's a work. I fucking hate Jerry Lawler. I don't know if I hate him as much or in the same way as Cornette, kind of, sort of. But I think about that era, and I think about that famous line when he was in the ECW arena. He's like, this place must be built out of toilet paper because all I see is a bunch of pieces of shit, which is like so amazing. But yeah, I don't know, like him shit talking on ECW, him hurting Tommy for real. Yeah, it blurred the lines for me. I was like, man, that guy is a motherfucker. And maybe he is. I don't know. I never met him. But
Well,
it's just one of those blur lines.
He
for me
said
that I
he
enjoy.
always looked at them as just crappy wrestling, and
Yeah, he liked
know.
to talk about Taz being short, but I'm pretty sure the King is a few ticks short of 6 feet himself.
yeah.
Last time I checked.
He said he made the comment he looked a lot bigger on the Lucky Charms box, and Taz got in his face for that.
I
and-
hope so.
Yeah, that's the last place you want to be when it comes to hanging out in front of him. Because, yeah,
But
I
then
like
again-
Taz's. Actually really like Taz's podcast too. That's one thing that I kind of miss about working in Detroit. The sports station after a pay-per-view would air because it was Sundays. They would air Taz's show on mainstream radio, which I thought was sweet.
Rock and roll. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I was driving home one day from work, and I was like, wow, this guy sounds a lot like Taz. And I was like, wait, he's talking about wrestling. It is Taz. I was like, what the hell is this? And I had no idea that they picked this show up randomly from, I believe it's got to be recorded in New York. It's got to be a syndicated show, obviously.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
But yeah, that was wild. I didn't even expect that. But yeah, I really liked listening to Taz's show. He's got a good show.
Quick question about Rhino and RVD. They're both Michigan made, so question is, was this match in Michigan? I mean, that's not a far commute for either of them, and the only one who would have to commute would be Tommy Dreamer. Assuming
I don't
that there
think so,
wasn't
because
other
this was
people wrestling at all.
Impact. This was Impact, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah, Rob lives in Las Vegas now with his 2 girlfriends. So yeah,
Right.
Who does?
Rob,
He has 2 girlfriends.
Yep.
why wouldn't he?
He's living
Rob Van
lavish.
Dam.
Oh, I'm not judging him. Believe
Whole
me.
fucking
I'm just
show.
thinking, wow, he's winning. That's like Charlie Sheen status.
Right. He's giving. He's giving him.
I'm not judging or knocking. Like, good
Right.
on you, playa.
is he Mormon?
I don't have any idea.
I don't think so.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Being Mormon or having 2 girlfriends.
Take it how you want it.
No.
No doubt, giving them premium whole effing show pumps. No doubt. But yes, fantastic job by them. Again, I thought it was a good match, and it's pretty sweet when you get to watch 3 legends in the and the fact that they're still able to do what they were doing at their age after everything they've put themselves through. I mean, show a little respect.
Who was the heel? Was Rhino the heel?
I
in that?
believe so, yeah, because people love RVD and they love his girlfriend too.
Which one?
Either. I'm pretty sure at this point.
I'm just surprised that Tommy Dreamer was able to make it. Did you see those kicks that he received from Orange Cassidy? Those
I
super
was just
kicks?
saying the other day, I didn't know if he got back from surgery or not.
I was going to say, I know he was in the infirmary or the intensive care unit all night.
I know, for a long goodness while, I was just so concerned. I was so concerned.
So,
Josh, have you ever shared the ring with Orange Cassidy?
I think before he was the Orange Cassidy of now.
Can we hear about pre-Orange
Tangerine
Cassidy?
Child?
Orange Cassidy?
I think he was just a
Tangerine Child.
Chikara guy. You know what I mean? I think.
Oh, he's from Chikara?
I think he's a Chikara guy. Yeah.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
So that's originally where he's from, I believe. He was just a guy. You know, bunch of guys out there. And he was just one of them.
What's his name? Quackenbush ran Chikara and probably, I have to assume, at least one wrestling school out on the East Coast, right?
Yeah. He still runs it, and he still runs the Wrestle Factory, which is his school there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now that you said that, I could totally see Cassidy being trained. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Nice.
We're big fans of Orange Cassidy here at this
like I said,
illustrious podcast.
Those super kicks.
yeah. Deadliest.
Just, ooh.
Tommy's been breaking down for a while, so it's miraculous that he's up and walking after that vulgar display of kick power.
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
You know, basically.
That's like I said, it goes back to the entertainment factor. A lot of people will look at certain things and they'll tear it down, but that's stupid, and it's very easy to be negative. But I'm just like, I'm sorry, but Carlos, who is it? Carlos Jackson, or is it?
Oh no, son of a bitch! What was it? It was Mike. It was a Michael Jackson lookalike wrestler.
Santana.
Is that what it was?
You talking
Santana
about the
Jackson.
guy doing the moonwalk in DDT?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Mark had the
Santana
harebrained
Jackson.
idea that
Santana Jackson.
He should tag up with Orange Cassidy. Which
That would be a
good time.
that'd be a very niche tag team, but wholly unstoppable.
I think him and Santino would be interesting. I think that would be, because they both are just dudes. Not really, but I don't know. They're comedy guys. There's not a lot of comedy guys in wrestling. there's a saying that funny doesn't make money, but he has a job and a lot of guys don't. So
Yeah.
Right. Well, again, and it's about having a good chemistry between the workers in your industry. And if you've got a couple comedy guys who can go out there, entertain, you fill in the gaps. You've got a whole assortment of wrestlers and performers, and it's just about knowing your product, knowing your, it even goes back to the ECW days where, a lot of people wouldn't take those guys, and Paul Heyman would be like, I'm going to focus on everything good that you have, and we're going to mask everything that isn't good. Mm-hmm. And it's if you've got the right plan, if you've got the right mentality and the right people, you can make something successful. But I just think there's not a whole lot of that in the mainstream. A lot of it is performance-based. Again, they're targeting a different audience, though. But that old school fan base is still there, and they're getting really sick of the nonsense. And I think that's, again, going back to supporting independent wrestling is where it's at, because that's, a lot of people, and this is, I can say the same, too, because I wasn't actively following wrestling for a long time. If it's not right in front of your face, I think people have the misconception that it doesn't exist. Whereas these guys have actually been putting in work for years and years, and they're just getting their shot, or they're just getting their chance. And that's really why I was excited when I found out about Independence Pro Wrestling coming to Kalamazoo, because I was like, holy crap, we have this wrestling federation that's in Kalamazoo, and every Wednesday we're going out and we're watching wrestling, and we've started this podcast, and I'm like, here we have a chance to watch a wrestling show in our hometown, and people need to know about this. You'll get a couple thousand people to turn out for WWE events at the Wings Event Center, and it's like, dude, you could be getting a fantastic show for way less money, and you won't even have to drive that far at the same time. And Josh, you started your career, way back in the early 2000s in Mid-South, right?
Yeah. I broke into wrestling as in an unorthodox way. I always wanted to be a pro wrestler, so I just kind of loved wrestling my entire life. My first memories of WrestleMania 2 and Bruno Sammartino and David Sammartino. Somehow my first memory in life, weirdly enough. But I also backyard wrestled, and during that time of the late 90s of backyard wrestling and tape trading, I ended up meeting another fellow tape trader. And for those who don't know what tape trading is, you guys know what tape trading is?
Yeah,
totally.
Okay, all right, just making sure.
They used to have, actually, I don't know, where did you grow up exactly?
Kalamazoo.
Okay.
Lawton.
I grew up in Rochester Hills on the other side of the state, and there's a big-ass mall over there called Great Lakes Crossing.
Yep.
They used to have a kiosk, and there was a dude set up with hundreds of VHS tapes.
Knockoff RF.
Yeah, totally. And we bought so many of those VHS tapes because we were like, oh my God.
That's
we
wild.
had no idea.
That's awesome.
I had a friend who was really into Calgary, Stampede wrestling back in the day. So he introduced me to the connection between them and Japan. That's how I learned about Benoit when he won the Super Juniors way back in the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Tiger Mask, I get introduced to all that stuff through.
So that's how you kind of got involved with that too, right?
Yeah, well, I've always was a fan, so I got into the tape trading thing because before YouTube and, the ability to find whatever you wanted, you had to send a tape to somebody and they'd send you one back. So I was looking for somebody who was tape trading in the area, and I found a guy in Grand Rapids who also had a backyard wrestling promotion. And I'm like, oh, cool. So we start talking, and we go ahead and do his co-backyard wrestling show when I'm 15 and drove up there illegally. And I had a little fun show with him, and he ended up staying in touch with me, and we find this guy who says he's a promoter and pro wrestler. He was just a promoter. He wasn't much of a pro wrestler, but he said he'd train us, and this guy didn't know what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, some other pro wrestlers were like, hey guys, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Let me help you out. So Frankie the Face was a guy who kind of showed me what to do in professional wrestling, and then Jimmy Jacobs just kind of took me underneath his wing. And that guy who I ended up originally meeting, the backyard wrestler, was actually old-timer Jeff King. I don't know if you're familiar with who he is.
No, I definitely saw the Face wrestle, though.
Yeah, if you get Frankie the Face is great. He's one of those guys that if he'd have really worked on his body, he would have definitely had a job.
Damn.
He reminds me a lot of Chris Hero, sincerely. He was definitely a very similar to Chris Hero type of wrestler.
Okay.
So I was fortunate to learn from him and Jimmy Jacobs. But old-timer Jeff King, if you get a chance, he's another good guy. He'll be on the show coming up, but he's one of the guys who should definitely look into.
Awesome.
Right now, he's really making a name for himself in the deathmatch wrestling scene.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he a part of Game Changer at all?
He's recently gotten booked there, I believe, for the early 2020.
Okay, because I know they just announced another show, and my buddy JP frequents those shows all the time because he lives in Chicago, and Game Changer often stops through there.
Yeah.
And some of those clips are fucking insane.
Yeah, Horror Slam in Detroit. They use a lot of the Game Changer guys.
Okay.
And do some stuff. So he's been working there with those guys, and they really like Jeff King, so they decided they want to help bring him in.
That's cool.
But anyhow, I got in with those guys, trained with Jimmy and Frankie, and kind of started out, and I think my 8th match was at IW Mid-South.
Okay.
And that's really early for a place that at the time was probably like the number 5 company in the United States.
Yeah.
It was pretty small.
And that was when you were like 19, wasn't it?
I was 18.
Oh, jeez.
Was Ian Rotten running it?
Ian
at that
Rotten,
point?
yeah. IW started in 96, like right after he left ECW. He moved
Yeah.
back to Louisville, and he started running shows then. So he's been running it since 96.
That's wild. Now,
Yeah, it's crazy.
were you wrestling Ian Rotten?
I wrestled him quite a few times. Yeah.
Okay.
We had a little feud, and it was cool.
Nice.
I learned a lot from Ian. I did my first ever like gimmick match per se, a barbed wire match.
Yeah.
Came out in bubble wrap.
That's freaking
I look like
genius.
the Christmas Story kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
No,
I understand.
if I'm not mistaken, Ian and Axel Rotten are brothers.
Correct.
And
not genetically. Actually,
not genetically,
no.
but they were
wink, wink,
they were
nudge,
pretty
nudge.
well known, I believe, in ECW for having the first Taipei wrestling match where they literally just glued pieces of broken glass to their knuckles and literally had a blood feud.
It was like
insane.
the fight at the end of Kickboxer.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah. Tong Po, bro. Tong Po.
Jean-Claude Van Damme dipped those motherfuckers in broken beer
I
bottles
just-
and fought for his life.
I just remember what was it, Hot Shots, when they're dipping their hands in the caramel and then he dips it in the gummy bears.
Yeah.
That's
Hot Shots,
hardcore.
That's good though. No, yeah. I started making my name there. I got contacted at 20 years old to do Wrestling Society X. So they're like, "Hey, you got a mustache right now," which I randomly grew.
Yeah.
And Jeff King and I were talking about old time wrestling. We started watching like 1950s wrestling, and how like nobody wore knee pads and all those like big high line socks and had mustaches, and so we decided we'd start looking like that randomly on just little spot shows. And I decided to do it one time at IWA, and got a lot of attention from fans.
Okay.
And then I decided to kind of transition over from that to like an 80s porn star.
Nice.
So at the time I wrestled with Josh Abercrombie.
Oh, that was you.
That was me.
No kidding.
That was me.
I almost asked you earlier if you knew Josh Abercrombie.
That was me, yeah.
That's wild.
I am that guy.
That makes
So, yeah.
so much sense now.
Yeah. It all adds up, huh? But yeah, that's who I originally was, and then I worked for Wrestling Society X on MTV, and I decided to use my real name for legal reasons. That way, if I left there and got a job somewhere else, I could be Josh Raymond in both places.
Yeah, no doubt.
So-
that makes it a lot easier.
And then from there, I traveled to AAA in Mexico, WXW in Germany, and some
Wow.
other places, and Ring of Honor, CZW.
Yeah, that's right. Because it was
PWG.
near, what was it, 2010-ish? Were you in Ring of Honor?
Yep.
Okay.
2008 through early, well, let's say late 2008 through like early 2011.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How was the experience there?
Awesome. I mean, like, at the time, it was the best wrestlers in the world. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it really was. I mean, everybody from Roderick Strong to Adam Cole. I mean, everybody who's anybody right now.
Right.
You know? I had Seth Rollins' last match in professional wrestling outside of WWE and FCW and NXT. For AAW in Chicago, we had our last match there. It was him and Jimmy versus me and Christian Abel, and that was his last independent match. And I was also in his last match of Ring of Honor. It was him versus Roderick Strong for the belt, and I did a run-in on that one too.
Oh,
So,
nice.
Yeah.
No kidding.
That's pretty freaking sweet. Do you have any footage of that?
I'm sure somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't keep anything because
Gotcha.
everything's online. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, because it was a little bit different back then. But yeah, especially now with the, when tape trading kind of phased off and then the internet kind of blew up with YouTube and everything. I'm sure we could search and find some clips of that as well.
I was a huge fan of Ring of Honor from about 2005 right up until, I don't know, handful of years ago now. It felt like once they hit TV, the product really started to change from that first wave.
Yeah, I think from like when they were on HD Net, it was still the Ring of Honor that it was. I think when it went to Sinclair Broadcasting, when they bought it, I think things changed there. I think that's really where things changed.
Is that when Cornette got involved too?
No, he was there slightly before that. He was there during HD Net time. I was there when Adam Pierce was the booker at the time.
Okay.
That's who hired me originally. I had tryouts before when Gabe was in charge, and I just, Gabe didn't find a spot for me, and there's a million guys at the time, and I, whatever. But once Adam Pierce was in charge, we did another tryout as a tag team, me and my student, Christian Abel, and he found a spot for us and really liked us, and we came in together as a House of Truth with our friend Truth Martini, and it was really good. We added Roderick Strong to our team, and he became the champion, and they were pushing us. It was pretty good.
That's sweet. House of Truth. Isn't Mysterious Movado there?
Yeah. The House of Truth is actually his name of his school as well, and Mysterious Movado is kind of the co-trainer there as of right now.
He's a super cool guy. I was lucky I got to work with him a couple times because he was always super chill, down to earth, and definitely one of those guys that you knew he'd been around for a long. Like we were talking earlier about Johnny Bravo as well, who's now in Impact, correct?
Yep, and Mysterious Movado is also an incredible musician. He used to be in a band called the Bumpin' Uglies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was in the Bumpin' Uglies.
Yeah, that's actually, his real name's Josh Movado. So, kayfabe, man, kayfabe.
Right.
But he plays like 13 instruments, super talented.
That's wild.
His brother's super talented too. But yeah, they were a tag team and a band. And then his brother stopped wrestling, and he kind of did the mask thing. I actually made his first mask for him.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you said you make wrestling attire as well.
I make wrestling attire. I'm a one-stop professional wrestling shop, so yeah.
That's sweet. Now, you were also in my dudes. You were in JCW. You were tag team champs with the Weed Man, right?
I was. My first
awesome.
time there, it was me and Jimmy Jacobs versus Necro Butcher and Madman Pondo. And that was in Grand Rapids. And we were just like this flamboyant, ambiguously gay group of two guys.
Right.
And we, wrestling those two guys, we were the heels because at the time, I guess that's what it was. So we got beat up by those guys, and they really liked us, and they brought me back to tag along with Weedman as Billy Bong. That's my other wrestling name. Josh Abercrombie, Josh Raymond, and Billy Bong.
Because Weedman would just go on and he'd just be smoking.
Yeah. And like, at the time, I didn't smoke marijuana until I was like 26 years old. Like, swear to God. And at the time, like, he's Weed Man, blaze it up all the time. And I'm like, all right, cool, man. All right, thanks. And I just like pretend like I'm doing this thing that I don't do. So, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
The last JCW show I saw was at, I went to Carnival of Carnage a couple of years ago at the L Club in Detroit. And they always put on a good show. I like JCW. It used to be way bigger than, because that was actually my first introduction to Jamie Cox, right? Because I believe he was in the first JCW, I think, Volume 1.
Yep.
And it kind of took me back because I had seen that years ago. So when I think Warped Tour was my first experience with him. And when I met him, I was like, why does this guy really look familiar? And that's when I went back and watched the JCW. I was like, holy crap. I was like, that was Cox when he was like freaking 18 or something.
Yep.
He was super young. And he's a part of Independence Pro Wrestling as well. He's going to be at the show at the Ybar. It's going down, I believe it's Saturday, January 11th.
You got it.
Okay, this is going to be a big show, especially because, when we found out that, you guys were going to be here and we're like, we've got this podcast that's located in Kalamazoo. It seems like Kalamazoo is starting to be somewhat of a good home for you guys. How in terms of audience, how has it been so far?
Well, fingers crossed, it continues to grow. Our first show, we were maybe a little more than half capacity. Since then, we sold out of all of our general admission every time, so they have only front row kind of left. We have VIP for anyone who wants to come early and do a meet and greet with some of the wrestlers. You get in 30 minutes early. You get to pick your front row seat before the front row seat guys get them.
Yeah.
And then you also get a chance to get pictures and meet people and take selfies and get autographs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool too that's at the Ybar because you can get drinks and food and stuff there, and
booze and wrestling mix well together.
Absolutely. And that's a cool thing about independent shows. Like I said, WWE was coming here to Kalamazoo, and then they came back. They scheduled a show at the Wings Event Center, but they did it like right before Labor Day. And I was like, that's not going to sell. And sure enough, 3 weeks before they were supposed to come here, they're like, yeah, we haven't sold anything. We out of here.
Yeah, I don't know if that was 3 weeks before that they gave us the green light, because I think that was the day, if not a couple days before.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
2 days?
Josh was saying 2 days.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so it was, because I was about to straight up click buy on some tickets because they were, going $50 was what they were going for front row, and then they knocked them down to $15.60 plus fees. Fuck you, Ticketmaster. I'm saying that when it came down to it, it was something that they canceled right before, and then there were so many people who had tickets that now just can't go and do this thing.
Right.
It's a venue that could have sold out easily.
And the big thing, and like I said, the big thing about independent wrestling is that literally everybody who pays a ticket to get in, you're literally financing somebody's well-being. And that's the best part about it, because you said you have a really good connection with the Ybar where you're doing it at,
yeah,
right?
they're great. I can't say enough good things about the Ybar. For one, their macaroni buffet bar was pretty fire here.
Slap
pretty
City.
fire. So yeah, they're awesome. They treat us good. Pardon me?
How much is that?
I don't know.
He doesn't work there.
What are their specials this
It's
week?
a very reasonable price.
Very reasonable.
Yes.
Right.
I hear it's wonderful.
Very fair. No, I hear it's really good though.
Yeah.
But no, they've been super good to us. And we have the ability to put up like promos and videos. We have like projectors all over the place, so it's
That's
really nice.
sweet.
Yeah, so we got a lot of options there. Hopefully it continues to grow, and hopefully we don't outgrow it too soon. But yeah, it's nice.
Absolutely. Now, Independence Pro Wrestling, you said obviously the last 3 months you've been in Kalamazoo. You've also performed near Paw Paw, correct?
Yeah, we've done some fundraisers in Lawton and Paw Paw, and we've also ran annual shows in Watervliet for their Independence Day festivals that they have going on. It's a Friday, Saturday gig that we usually do there.
Nice. Now, what are your future plans for IPW? Because it seems that, I mean, obviously you grew up in Kalamazoo. It's more locally based. Do you have any future plans or aspirations that you'd like to see IPW accomplish?
Well, first off, Kalamazoo is really a really good spot to be a professional wrestler. I tell all of my students, you're lucky to be where you're at, because we're halfway between Chicago and Detroit, where there's a lot of independent professional wrestling there. We're not too far from Indianapolis, where there's a lot of wrestling, and then down by Louisville and Jeffersonville, there's a show there almost every week on Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have 6 hours. You can make a living wrestling if you wrestled all those days. You wrestled 5 days a week. You could wrestle and make a living within traveling 6 hours from home. So that's kind of a nice place to be. I think that my goals personally is to just continue to grow. I'm taking it one day at a time, like I said earlier. But I really, really hope to have more than one location where we run monthly shows. So right now we're running monthly shows in Kalamazoo, minus December. But ideally I'd like to have a lot of places to do that at, whether it's Grand Rapids, which we did Grand Rapids back in March, and it was awesome at the Masonic Temple there. Hopefully we can find a new venue for Grand Rapids, but I would love to have a lot of little small shows, not small shows, but good shows in a lot of different little cities.
Yeah,
so.
Convenient locations throughout the Southwest Michigan area.
Absolutely.
No doubt. Now, that's the thing, too, because you have a lot of independent wrestlers from Michigan. Like we'd mentioned, Jamie Cox is going to be there as well. Are you going to be... You're going to be in the main event on this card coming up on January 11th, correct?
I am. The Dusty Rhodes booking there, buddy. Yeah. No, if you get what I'm saying, yeah. Dusty Rhodes always put himself on top in Florida Championship, but that's not actually the plan, kayfabe. But so the last couple months, I've been wrestling a guy by the name of Aaron Orion, and I don't know if you know who Aaron Orion is, but he's starting to make a name for himself. I wrestled him, maybe 9 years ago when he was just a young, chubby kid.
Yeah.
And didn't know much, but after his match with me, he was like, "Bro, you changed my view on wrestling entirely." I'm like, "All right, cool, man." And then I didn't see him because he went to the Army and came back, and 5 years later, he's a completely different guy who's in good shape and looks like a wrestler and thinks like a wrestler. And while he's in the Army, he was wrestling down in the Carolinas and told me again, "Hey, you changed the way I looked at wrestling. I want to thank you so much for it." I'm like, "Oh, awesome." Now it means a lot more from, just a kid who, not to be a jerk or anything, but just, I hear stuff like that from guys sometimes, and they don't really mean it. They're just trying to be nice.
Yeah, yeah.
And but he was sincere about it. So I'm like, man, I really like this guy, and he's gotten really good, and he's really dedicated his life to it, and now he's starting to make a name for himself, and we've been using him on our shows, and right now we're feuding. In the last 3 shows, we've been in matches together. The first show, I won by DQ when he low blowed me. Second show.
Fucking bastard.
I know. Second show, same thing. Third show, we ended up doing. Or actually, no, sorry, he didn't low blow me in the second show. His goons, his Death Threat Army buddies, came in and kind of beat me up. But this last show, we had a 5-on-5 tag match.
Oh,
It was
nice.
The Death Threat Army versus me and 4 other guys. 2 of those guys being the Monroes, DBA, and Malcolm Monroe.
Oh, yeah.
third. And then one of my students, Terry Van Avery, who's actually the manager at Ybar, who could tell you how much the macaroni buffet costs. and the last one being a mystery partner. And the mystery partner ended up being a good friend of mine, Alex Shelley. So Alex Shelley was on our last show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he is going to be, as of today, a couple hours ago, I uploaded it, or not uploaded it, but shared that he's going to be on our next show as well.
Saw that. That's
So, yeah.
sweet.
For those who don't know, that would be the Alex Shelley from the Motor City Machine Guns.
Oh!
That dude, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's super good.
From
Super
Detroit, I
good.
believe,
Yeah,
right?
making those connections.
Yeah.
I saw that. Okay.
So yeah, he'll be there. So it should be a really, really good show. My goal is to keep having better shows each time.
Yeah.
The only bad part is, like, I have a million guys booked right now, and it's like, I'm maybe too nice of a guy, and like, all right, you can come back. And I don't want to be that guy being like, all right, you're just not at the level I need you to, so sorry, you got to leave. But I'm going to have to do that soon.
Yeah,
sadly
it's
enough.
well, it's tough, but again, you want it to grow. You just got to,
Right.
it's nothing personal.
No, it's business,
especially
man.
on the independent level, and you're running this thing, you're quarterbacking it. You need to have the right guys on your line, and it's not a shade towards anybody that you may say, hey, go off, work on yourself,
Absolutely.
and then come back around, because it's not. You don't seem like the kind of guy that's like, go and get.
No,
You know?
no, definitely not. I mean, I want everyone to be successful, but of course not everyone can be.
Right.
So you have to pick what's best for, your promotion, your business, and you can't hire everybody for any job. You got to hire the best person, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. And it's kind of a bummer because I hate, mixing friendship and business, but I have a lot of friends who are on the show, and I have to be like, sorry, pal. So,
yeah, no doubt. Well, it's tough, but you know what? This is what's exciting, is because we just started this podcast, and now we're like, oh my god, now there's pro wrestling in Kalamazoo,
And it's good, honestly. Like, unbiased, opinion. Like, we're having really good shows, and people are, happy with it. Let's put it that way.
That's great. And I worked a little bit, and I know, Davison, you worked for a company back in the early 2000s, right?
I sure did. There was a tiny little women's company called the Kalamazoo Precinct of Women's Wrestling.
Kapow!
Kapow!
I never heard of this.
You wouldn't have. It was the size of an ant fart in a dust storm. We maybe did about 10 shows total.
Really?
This would have been more like 98, 99, 2000 range.
Okay.
There was a little cafe over by Bell's. I can't remember what it's called now. But anyway, it was like there was an indie rock band that would play. The thing was set up in front. It wasn't a ring. It was just like mats on the stage.
Sure.
And I would run around announcing and shouting about what was happening. But I've always had love for just the smallest independent artists,
Yeah.
And that, even just that little bit, showed me an appreciation for a small team of people having to do 10 jobs each to make a show happen. And as a person who owns a company and runs it, I'm sure it's got to be exponentially more for you.
And I was just going to say, it's really the thing that really kind of shocked me is that you have these very intimidating looking guys who are some of the nicest people. Like, I can only speak for myself, but there was a dude who I worked with twice, and he was really freaking cool to me, even though I had zero experience working with any kind of independent wrestlers. But his name is, up until recently, he went by the name of Buddy Hanlon.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, he took really good care of his body. He was definitely, when I was working with DSW, he was basically booked as their top guy because he was the most in shape. He had good ring presence, but just in general, his character was intimidating. But behind the curtain, he was just super chill and very polite, and it was really comfortable being around him. And it was just fun being a part of that. We went down to the floor at the Palace of Auburn Hills with thousands of people sitting there watching some stupid movie on the screen, and we're like, all right, we're gonna do this thing where there was this kid who was his angle was he was playing Pokemon Go as he was wrestling, and he was going up against Buddy Hanlon. So we were doing an interview where he's trying to catch Pokemon, and Hanlon comes in and just starts wrecking his shit right on the ground, and we're throwing him through tables. And
He wrecked his Pokemon game?
yeah, while he's playing Pokemon Go, and Hanlon's just totally messing this dude up.
That
And
sounds like
security's like
bullying
looking at us
behavior.
like, what the hell are those guys doing? And they were like,
Wow.
what the hell are you doing? And we're like, hey, we got DSW outside, 15 minutes. We out of here. We just tipped out.
Hijack.
But that was cool. Is that you could be a part of stuff like that, and then, you know, you're right with these guys. They're like, all right, you're with us. You're cool. Like, and that was the thing. It's a very embracing vibe in independent wrestling. That's really what I loved most about it.
Yeah, wrestling's always really been a really inclusive, like progressive business. Weirdly enough, like it's really been inclusive to people who, you know, are sometimes marginalized in society. Like wrestling's kind of taken them in.
Right.
To talk on that, I would say that as I said last week, or maybe a week or two before that, the taking your identity or taking your perspective to a hyperbolic state in which it's just over-exaggerated is one thing, because then you've got the scrutiny or the eyes on it from the masses. But yeah, I will say that the independents, at least how I've seen it, have been more focused on the individual who wants to express themselves the way that they feel it necessary, and their craft is the way that they go about it. One of the things that I say most is that, you know, there are some movies that I'll watch or where I'll see an actor in a position or in a role, and then I say, you know what, that's just them. That's just who they are. It's through and through. Fraser Crane is who Kelsey Grammer is. Just a pretentious, wrong perspective. Pretentious individual who's all about himself, and then also has this air of, you know, endearment. I would also say that about Tim Allen when it comes down to talking about his home improvement skills. He takes it to the next level. It's when you are able to actually portray something so thoroughly or so vividly for the audience to blur those lines, it's because there's an actual level of genuine person in that makes it that much realer or that much more them. So Big E is an example. Xavier Woods is an example. There's Daniel Bryan is an example. At times, there's perspectives of these or components of these people that have pushed it to making it real for us, and independents have actually capitalized on that.
Yeah, and that's really what it's all about. I feel like that's where people are discovering their craft, and they're discovering who they are as not only a performer but as a wrestler as well.
Well, speaking of the craft, and again, Josh, I'm curious because you've been not just wrestling, not just putting on shows and organizing, but like you said, also coaching people for a while now.
Yeah.
How long have you been teaching people to wrestle?
Oh, goodness. So I started wrestling in late 2002, early 2003. And I started training people at Dan Severn's Professional Wrestling School.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Coldwater,
In Coldwater,
right?
Michigan
Yeah.
Sports Camps. I started there, I believe, in 2006. So summer of 2006. So I was green. You know, if somebody nowadays was only 3 years in and was training people, it'd be absurd. But when I broke in, there weren't guys who were like 20 years in the business like there are now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there weren't as many independent wrestlers, and there especially weren't guys who were around for a long time. So, you know, back then, like, if you're around for 3 years, it's kind of a veteran. Nowadays, if you're not around for, 12 years, you're not a veteran. So it's so different now. But back then, I started training at his school in 2006, and I've had a lot of really good students go through there. Lewis Linden being one of them, Christian Abel another. Both those guys were on TV for different things. Lewis Linden was on Lucha Libre USA for a while.
Awesome.
And, he's wrestled in Japan for 0-1 and a couple other places. And Christian Abel was my tag partner and student and did Ring of Honor and other places with me. So, yeah.
So how was that for you? I used to work in education a little bit, and I know that pride of seeing people succeed. Aside from your own career as a performer, can you talk about, your feelings seeing these guys grow as performers and succeeding in their own right?
Yeah, like, honestly, I want my students to be better than me. I really do. I want my kids to be better than me. Like, I coach school wrestling as well. I coach at Pop-Up Middle School. And I coached the junior high team for, 18 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, since I was 18 years old, legitimately.
That's wild.
Yeah. So I've taught there for 18 years. And so I have a background in, teaching, amateur wrestling, as they call it now, folk-style wrestling. And some of the process of teaching that has translated a lot easier than I expected it to teaching professional wrestling. So now that I'm not at Dan Severn School anymore, I started my own school right outside of Kalamazoo in Gobles. I have a little school there, and I teach, 8 kids right now. Not 8 kids, some of them are older than me, but I call them all kids because they're students. But yeah, I have 8 students right now, and a couple of them are going to be really good. A couple of them are going to be really, really good.
Gotcha.
I have one who'll get signed for sure. I have one student who's like 6'8", 300 pounds, just jacked as can be.
Just the beast.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable about talking about rates for anybody who's interested, or how vivid? Like,
yeah. I mean,
okay.
Sure.
What kind of hours as well do you train?
Right now, where we're at, we are training Tuesday and Thursday nights from 5:30 till 9:30. So it's
Okay.
4-hour practices. And then on the weekends, we have Saturday mornings. If there's not shows, like, of course, if I'm running IPW or I have a show like this weekend where I'm at Capital Pro Wrestling in Lansing, I don't have practice then. But typically we have Saturdays from 9 to 1 as well.
Okay.
So 3 days a week, 4 hours each practice. Rates are, if you paid up front, which a lot of schools who paid up front, you get a discount, like with a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's like $1,500.
Okay.
But if you pay it monthly, and it goes up more. So it's kind of one of those things. So it's 10 months of $200 each month. So it'd be $2,000, or it's up front with $1,500. So
Wow.
that's it.
Okay. So you said $200 a month?
Yep.
That's not bad at all.
No, it's definitely not.
No, considering what it used to be. I mean, when you look back at, what's the? I mean.
If you look at
there's
Ohio Valley School right now, I think it's like $5,000. I think a lot of schools are closer to the $5,000, $4,000 area. House of Truth, I think, is $2,600. Black and Brave is, I think, $4,200. So there's
Is
a lot
Ring
of
of Honor
schools.
still running their school too?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they still have a school. I think theirs is probably closer to the $5,000 as well. But yeah, I mean, like, unlike a lot of these schools where you have 10 weeks to learn to be a professional wrestler, and after that, good luck. Like, I don't do that.
Right.
Like, I continue training somebody until they're ready. But I don't take just anybody. Like, a lot of these schools take people and bump them to death and then make them quit.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just a way for them to make
Right.
money.
They just want to run them down and.
Like, wrestling's given me a lot, and I want to get back to wrestling, and it's not about making money. Like, I have students who are like 6 months behind on payments, and it's like, all right, get to me when you can. I know life.
Right. Exactly.
I'm way too nice sometimes, but I kind of understand. Wrestling's given me a lot, and I like to give back to it. And if I can give back with, competent, good professional wrestlers who will pass on proper knowledge to the next generation, I think I'm doing something good for the business.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, very commendable.
So you're saying I still have time to become Diamond Dallas Page?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Diamond Dallas T.
Yeah, Diamond Dallas T. I'm all about it. He was 35. I've got still 5 years to
absolutely.
become him. I'm all about it. I could become champion.
Yeah, even John. Well, I know Johnny. He reached out to me too, and I was like, dude, I think I screwed myself up at way too young of an age to pursue that. I don't know. I would really hate to really focus on trying to get back into that and then hurt myself again. That would not be good, because I tore the muscle off my back, and it's still. I tore the muscle off I think one of my back ribs, and I didn't really realize it at first.
And break
I didn't
your back at the same time, bud.
I did a moonsault, and it was a very high arching moonsault, and I did it on my buddy in my chest. He was a rather robust fella.
And your legs were
Whiplashed.
dear.
So I
Scorpion
whiplashed.
style, yeah.
So I whiplashed, and I was like, fuck!
Yeah. Speaking
And
of
it-
jackass.
Yeah. Yeah, I rolled out.
Zoop.
Yeah, I rolled out, and I laid there for like a couple of minutes just to make sure everything was good, and it was fine. And then, like, I think it was about a week later or so, I sustained a very heavy key lime pie injury at Red Lobster. No, I was pulling a tree.
What?
Yes. Key
I'm
lime
sorry,
pie
what?
injuries are real.
That's because it's gross.
Right.
It is gross. It is gross. All right, you're on the same page. Cool.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're all on the same page on this side of the fence.
Since we're on injuries, you've been wrestling such a long time. I know you've had to go through a spate of injuries.
I have my back fused, literally.
wow.
Interior
Whoa, really?
and interior, like through the stomach and through the back.
Oh my
Wow.
Yeah,
God.
legit.
How does that affect your performance in the ring? Did you have to change your style up?
He stopped. He
Yes.
stopped working the belly dancing gimmick that he
totally.
was.
Yeah, I gave up on abs long ago, but so that doesn't work too much. But no, yeah, I'm definitely not as flexible. Like, I use a lot more high flying type of wrestling style before.
Gotcha.
And I still do a little bit of it, probably more than my wife would care for me to.
Right.
But I mean, I can still do it. I'm just not nearly as flexible. It's not as pretty as it used to be, but it's more than competent. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's my key lime pie injury wasn't that bad.
Yeah, no, I broke my ankle over the summer too. Yeah, I was wrestling at Border City for Scott D'Amore's promotion there, and I took a run to the outside and just missed my hand on the apron when I was going down, and just broke my ankle. And then I went to XICW afterwards and wrestled a match with a broken ankle. It was a terrible idea. And then I went to U of M on the way home and got some X-rays and found out it was broken. So yeah.
Do you know Matt Hagen?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he's another dude I'm following on Facebook as well. We've hung out a couple of times as well. He's a solid dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many. That's like you said. It's really like Michigan, especially. I wonder if there's as much of an independent scene around here than there is in Michigan, because it seems like there's just a plethora of dudes who are.
You just mentioned Capital.
Capital Pro Wrestling, yeah, they're relatively new as well. Right now, they're doing kind of an old school NWA style show on YouTube. If you get a chance, check it out. Both the guys in charge there are really big fans of late 70s, early 80s NWA stuff.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of good stuff that they're doing there. They use a lot of the same guys I do, not all, but a lot. And they have pretty good shows. It's out of the Fledge, which is kind of like an art venue / concert hall / pro wrestling place. It's a really unique place. It's kind of like a community outreach place where they kind of help like the local kids in the neighborhood have a place to hang out.
That's
it's really
cool.
neat. It's a really neat place. And like, if I lived there, I'd probably help out there. Like that's the kind of place it is.
Yeah, that's important too.
You mentioned the word fundraising a bunch when we were talking before this show. Can you go into that a little more? How your company participates in that?
Absolutely. So a lot of times we'll come in for, let's say, a fundraiser for fireworks for your small town or whatever. We'll come in and we will put on a professional wrestling show. You'll pay us a set price, and then you'll make more money than what you pay us, and then you keep the rest of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, we discuss how much we want to do tickets for. We help promote it. We do what we can. We work with local businesses, doing kind of a meet and greet at the local businesses and autographs and stuff. And we do a lot of things if we can. But I mean, we've raised, I don't know, like $3,000 for Lawton's fireworks one time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm from the town, so I like to help out for sure. I graduated from the high school, and other places we'll come in, and if it's just a festival, you set a price, and if it works something out for us, we can have this many matches or this amount of time. Like matches and amount of time are all discussable. Like you can have 3 matches an hour, or you can have 1 match in an hour. It all depends. So we've worked pretty well with people. We have a couple rings, so we've done a lot of different things on the same day. We've had one show in Waterville and another show up in, Charlotte. It's right south of...
Right by Lansing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we've done stuff there in the same day. So it's kind of fun. We try to, do as much as we can. But it's been a while since we've done anything outside of Kalamazoo. And so if we're looking for places, and you know any place that would like to have professional wrestling, let us know.
Yeah.
Facebook.com/Independence Pro Wrestling.
Absolutely. And we're going to be, we'll see if we can make some kind of connection here, because like I said, this is the fact that you guys frequent Kalamazoo. I mean, we're right here. This is something where we're pretty passionate about and look forward to becoming a part of being there and supporting you guys as well any way possible. And we'll see obviously what the future holds with Independence Pro Wrestling and Crucial Squared Circle.
But tied to that, you were saying that tickets are going for reasonable prices. I believe that they're $10, $20, and $30. And I just got you got it. I will gladly pay for a ticket. I'm down.
$10 GA, $20 front row, and then $30. Is it front row and meet and greet?
Yep.
So yeah, $30, you're going to get front row seats and meet and greet, early entry into the venue, which means first dibs on the macaroni bar.
I was just about to say the macaroni bar also is a thing that I'm all about trying.
We also have drink specials and a lot of cool stuff going on with that. I really hope people can come out. Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate it. And plugging us on the radio the other day. My wife heard you while she was driving, and then called me and was like, "Hey, did you advertise on WKFR? I'm like,
Right.
no, maybe Ybar did, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I do middays on 103.3 KFR as well, our sister station out in Kalamazoo. And like I said, I saw it. I saw one of my buddies was interested in it, and I was like, where is that at? And I was like, that's in Kalamazoo. And then I went back into your events, and I was like, They've done 3 shows here in the last 3 months in Kalamazoo, and we've never heard about this. And, we're huge wrestling fans, so, like, for me, I was like, man, we've been missing out on this.
I felt insulted that I didn't know about this. I mean, I don't know if that's appropriate to feel that way, but...
I just felt like a bad fan for not
I
paying
feel
more
ashamed
attention.
that you guys don't know. Like I'm not doing my job of promoting shit.
Well, that's,
so, yeah.
like I said, I would love for us to do something in the future together. We'll have to wait and see what the next 2 weeks hold for us because, like I said, this is going to be the last episode for a couple of weeks because I'm gone from the 20th through the 29th. So we'll be off for a couple of weeks. We'll return on January 3rd, 8 days before High Stakes is the name of the event at the Ybar. Okay, High Stakes is on the 11th, Saturday.
Stakes and weights.
Stakes and weights. And
Yeah, High Stakes. There's a ladder match. So, as I mentioned before, Aaron Ryan and I had a little feud going on.
Yeah.
And it's culminated into a ladder match for the Michiana Championship.
Michiana Championship. Yeah. And now what titles do you have in IPW?
We have the Michiana Championship, we have the IPW Championship, and then we have the IPW Tag Team Championships. We also have a women's champion.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Heidi Katrina from the UK. She's going to have a job somewhere very soon.
Gotcha.
Beautiful girl, great shape. She is the British Amazon, as they call her.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she's going to be hired somewhere very soon.
Awesome.
So, yeah, get a chance to see her before she's on TV somewhere.
That's awesome.
That's great. Well, we look forward to being there, and we'll see what the next weeks unfold for us. If there's something that we could hook up on, maybe we'll make it happen. But either way, having you here with us was freaking huge. It's a huge pleasure for us because you're the first wrestler we've had on the Crucial Squared Circle, and I always have a deep respect for anybody who puts their body on the line for a living like that. It's such a dangerous lifestyle for the sake of entertaining others, and it's a completely selfless position to hold.
I appreciate that. Like, I think most people nowadays kind of understand, like, wrestling, yeah, it's a work. It's not entirely real. It's not UFC. It's not, 100% legitimate. But everything that happens in the ring, to some extent, has some legitimacy to it. When you bump, it hurts. It's like getting in a car accident at 35 miles per hour. A lot of guys have permanent injuries, a lot of concussions, a lot of things that are going to last them a lifetime. Broken bones. Like, if you can see my elbow here.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything.
It's an elbow that's got screws and plates and all kinds of stuff in it, and courtesy of professional wrestling.
Right.
I mean, I have a lot of injuries. If you kind of see the skull tattoo here, I have it's different injuries from my body. It's a skull fracture. That's a broken left ankle. That's a broken right ankle there, and that's a broken left arm. So,
Ow.
yeah.
Ain't no games out here.
No.
None at all.
And I just want to say, I feel like a terrible broadcaster. I'm an amateur. I feel like an idiot for not knowing that you are who you are. So,
I don't even know who I am, so that's all right.
That's amazing. but I want
Well, you kind
to
of did
say
because you
this
knew
in
the
total.
Abercrombie name.
I want to say this in total sincerity. Yeah. I mean, I've lived here since 96 or 97 now. I moved here from Flint, where I grew up. And, wrestling has been a big deal up and down. You've been a fan forever, so you know how it's come in waves. Your name has always been spoken, though, since the early 2000s around this area. And hearing everything you're saying about putting on these shows, training people, I'm sure people have said it to you, but I mean, you're like a local legend.
I used to be cool, man. I used to be something.
Well, I just want to thank you.
I appreciate that for
as,
sure.
as a fan.
You're still doing it, and that's the cool thing. You're still doing it. You're still putting it on. Independence Pro Wrestling, High Stakes, January 11th, Ybar, Kalamazoo. Tickets on sale now. If you look up, we'll connect on this podcast. We'll connect the link so you can get tickets to this event. We'll try to connect before that too, if you wouldn't mind. If you wouldn't mind coming back with maybe a few other wrestlers from the IPW, maybe we could have you guys on January 3rd on the podcast as well.
That sounds good. I'd like to do that for sure. I got some other local wrestlers from the Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo area and surrounding area that I'll talk to about coming in.
That'd be sweet. Yeah, and we'll scope out the Ybar, and then maybe we'll go get some mac and cheese afterwards.
Yeah. No, thank you guys so much. Like, you guys are super cool. I like you genuinely. So yeah,
Awesome.
I'm really appreciate this. So thank
Thanks.
you.
Absolutely. We
Thank
appreciate you. Well, another successful episode of the Crucial Squared Circle. Make sure you like us on Facebook.com/Crucial Podcasts. We've got all the podcast episodes that we've ever done up there. Any of the interviews that we've done are up there as well. Make sure you follow us. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. If you just search Crucial Podcasts, it pops right up. We look forward to partnering with IPW. Hopefully in the future, we'll see if we can make some magic happen. T, any last words of love?
No.
Macaroni, perhaps?
Sure, macaroni. Macaroni sounds just delightful. Yes.
All right. Let's get the trash out of here, and we'll be back in a few weeks. Everybody enjoy your Christmas or your Hanukkah. Either way, enjoy it, and we'll holla at you soon. Deuces.